One of the most highly anticipated movies of this year has been unleashed on fans after a wait of more than 3 decades. With such a build-up, it's inevitable the Blade Runner sequel will be heavily compared to the first film. We'll let you be the judge.
I'm Rachel.
On its release in 1982, Ridley Scott's adaptation of Philip K. Dick's Blade Runner found instant cult success.
Fate brought me out of the storm to that house that stood alone in the shadows. As I probed into its mysteries, every clue told me a different story.
With its existentialist characters inhabiting dystopian settings, the movie updated and popularized the film noir aesthetic of the 1940s.
Known before was in that room.
What if I go north? Disappear? Would you come after me?
No, you wouldn't, but somebody would.
The story follows police officer Rick Deckard on the trail of human-looking robots called replicants who seek freedom. The chase causes the loner lawman to eventually question his own nature.
I can see you!
Time to die.
In Blade Runner 2049, the replicants are finally integrated into society. Actor Ryan Gosling's Kay is one such organism who works for the LA Police Department. His investigation of the murder of another android leads Kay to further delve into events that were left unresolved in the first film. The director of the new installation sees his production as a thematic sequel to the original while preserving its essential elements.
I was good at it. When I read the screenplay, I felt that there was like some themes, like existential themes in the screenplay, some questions about identity, what are the limits of humanity, what the themes of broken dreams, the exploration of how can we break the cycles, the repetitive cycles of human conditions. Like it's something that is linked with my work that I've done, and I felt that there was like some familiarity and with what I've done, so I felt that strangely I felt home.
Veteran Harrison Ford, who plays Detective Rick Deckard in both movies, believes Blade Runner 2049 will provide answers about the first film while expanding on its mythology.
There is so much new information coming at you as a character and as an audience, that you just want to be still and make sure that you're reading this right, that you really know what's going on. And so the characters are constantly in the midst of a dilemma that is, you know, it's like being fed from a garden, you know, drinking out of a garden hose. There's so much happening to them that perhaps it, you know, it's close to overwhelming for them.
You police plan on taking me in?
I would much prefer that.
But franchise newcomer Ryan Gosling assures fans that their follow-up has its own mark to make.
To the future is finally unearthed.
When I read the screenplay, I just thought, wow, this is really, it's walking this tightrope of being such a, you know, such a love letter to the original, but at the same time, completely unique film in its own right. So it was, it seemed like a great opportunity for me.
The film divided audiences after its premiere. Some critics say the dark epic, which is on wide international release, raises more questions than answers, just like its predecessor.
There's still a page left.
And now film critic Jose Teodoro joins us via Skype to set the record straight on the much talked about sequel to Blade Runner. Welcome back, Jose. It's great to see you. It's been 35 years. Why did Warner Brothers decide to do a sequel to the Blade Runner now?
You know, I mean, I think there's two reasons for that. One, of course, is that it's a Blade Runner is sort of a unique film. It was a film designed as a blockbuster made by a major director with a major Hollywood star. And it underperformed at the box office. So it became, over time, a cult film with multiple versions and, you know, all kinds of theories about the meanings of things. So over time, it's developed a status that few films of its kind can boast. And the idea of making a sequel to it so many years afterwards is intriguing for a variety of reasons. We're dealing with artificial intelligence. We're dealing with the idea of, you know, the limits of human experience. So making a film after all this time gives you an opportunity to, you know, think about everything that's passed in our own world in the meantime and see how you can incorporate it into this world.
So as far as elements such as atmosphere and characterization is concerned, do you think Blade Runner 2049 lived up to expectations?
I think yes and no. I think that its characters are not particularly strong or compelling, but in the film you have an amazing director, Denis Villeneuve, a Canadian, who I think was sort of an ideal choice for the film. The film begins with an image of an eye, and I think he's very interested in looking around the world. It's not a film with a lot of narrative momentum, but it is a film that you can kind of live in for a while, for 2 hours and 45 minutes, in fact. It's a film that encourages you to walk around in it, to get a bigger sense of what this world of Blade Runner is all about. In the first film, it's mostly contained to Los Angeles. It's mostly nocturnal. This film, you get to see a much broader idea of what the world is like, and that part of it is exciting.
Well, let's take a look at the characters that are the cast that's playing the characters. We have Ryan Gosling, of course, Harrison Ford, and one of my favorites, Robin Wright. What do you think about the characters? Do you think that they owned up to the high expectations?
I think, you know, a big problem with Blade Runners is the fact that the concepts of the first film are so strong that it's hard to, pardon the pun, replicate how those concepts play out in character in this version. Ryan Gosling's character is supposed to be a replicant that has, you know, less emotion. He's less dangerous as a replicant in this film because he's not supposed to want anything. But from the very beginning of the film, we know he's soulful. We know he listens to Frank Sinatra in his home. He has this holographic girlfriend. I think he's brilliant casting, but I think inevitably the tension between humans and replicants in this film, it dissipates somewhat.
Okay, so I want to touch upon critics saying that there are a lot of gender stereotypes in this movie. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a huge problem. You know, I mean, you essentially have two kinds of women in this film. You have women that are there to service men. So you have the holographic girlfriend who's basically just there to do whatever the man who buys her pleases. And there's also, you know, sex workers in the film that play an important narrative role. And then on the other hand, there are women who are just agents of violence. You know, there's a certain kind of sense of chic around these women who, you know, can hurt men in various ways, as you also had in the original Blade Runner. You know, I mean, I think that this film does look like it's being set up to be a franchise, and perhaps some of the female characters will become more interesting as it goes along. But right now, they're basically there to be subservient or there to be villains.
Well, last but not least, do you think there's going to be a follow-up? Because a lot of people are saying that this version of Blade Runner made things more complex. Do you think that there's going to be a follow-up with this one?
Yes, unfortunately, I think there is. I think it would be more interesting for there not to be a number of follow-ups. But there is, for example, a character played by Jared Leto, he plays this very sinister, enigmatic character. He only has a couple of scenes. And as you're watching him, you know for sure they're setting us up so that this guy can come back later and have a bigger role. I think the film is more interesting if you isolate it, you know? I mean, like the first film, we had 35 years to think about that one. The idea that we'll get another Blade Runner in 2 years is not as exciting to me, at least.
Well, thank you so much for a great review there, Jose.
Thank you very much.